people react. Strategic thinkers. Observe. Most people move through life on reflex. Something happens and they respond immediately. A message arrives and they feel the urge to reply. A comment hits their ego and they defend themselves. A problem appears and they rush to solve it before they fully understand it. Reaction feels productive. It feels decisive, but most of the time, it quietly destroys leverage. Strategic thinkers operate from a different place. They don't rush to be first. They don't confuse speed with intelligence. Their first move is almost always the same. They observe. They watch how people speak, what they avoid, what pressures them, and what they reveal without realizing it. While others are busy reacting, strategic thinkers are collecting information. Reaction gives information away. Observation gathers it. When you react instantly, you expose your emotional state. You reveal what matters to you, what triggers you, and where you're vulnerable. Even silence, when chosen deliberately, says less about you than words spoken under pressure. This is why reactive people often feel like they're always one step behind. They're constantly responding to the world instead of understanding it. Observation is not passive. It's not hesitation or fear. It's active awareness. It's the discipline of staying present long enough to see the full picture before committing yourself to a position. Strategic thinkers understand that once you react, you've entered the game on someone else's terms. Think about how often problems escalate simply because someone spoke too soon. A misunderstanding turns into conflict. A small issue becomes a permanent fracture. Not because the situation was unsolvable, but because someone reacted before they understood what was really happening. Observation prevents unnecessary damage. Most people believe that if they don't respond quickly, they will lose control. In reality, the opposite is true. The person who reacts last often holds the most power. They decide when the conversation moves forward. They decide which battles deserve engagement. They decide what information stays private. Strategic thinkers ask different questions than reactive thinkers. Instead of asking, "How do I respond?" they ask, "What am I seeing?" They look for patterns instead of isolated moments. They pay attention to timing, tone, and context. They notice who speaks first, who interrupts, and who stays quiet. And these details reveal far more than words ever could. Observation also creates emotional distance. When you pause to observe, you give yourself space between stimulus and action. That space is where clarity lives. Without it, emotions take control. With it, choice becomes possible. This doesn't mean strategic thinkers never act. It means they act from understanding rather than impulse. They wait until the situation reveals itself. And situations always do, if you're patient enough to watch. One of the most powerful habits you can develop is learning to delay your response just long enough to see what unfolds next. Often, people will explain themselves if you stay silent. They will expose their intentions if you don't interrupt. They will show you whether a situation is urgent or merely loud. Silence has a way of applying pressure without effort. When you don't react immediately, others fill the space. They talk more. They justify themselves. They show their hand. This is not manipulation. It's simply allowing reality to surface without interference. Reactive thinking is driven by discomfort. Silence feels awkward. Uncertainty feels threatening. Strategic thinking requires you to sit with that discomfort and trust that clarity is worth the wait. This is a skill, and like any skill, it must be trained. A simple practice begins with what you can call the pause before position rule. Before you state your opinion, before you explain yourself, before you commit emotionally or verbally, pause. Ask yourself 3 quiet questions. What is actually happening here? What is being said versus what is being implied? And what happens if I don't respond right now? Most situations do not require immediate action. They only feel urgent because emotion is involved. Strategic thinkers learn to separate urgency from importance. They understand that the loudest moment is rarely the most important one. Over time, observation sharpens your intuition. You begin to sense shifts before they become visible. You notice when energy changes in a room. You feel when a conversation is about to turn. This isn't mystical. It's the result of paying attention instead of reacting. People who react quickly often believe they are being authentic. But authenticity without awareness becomes recklessness. Strategic thinkers are just as honest, but they are selective. They know when honesty helps and when it harms. They understand that timing determines impact. When you observe instead of react, you also protect your energy. You stop wasting attention on things that don't matter. You stop engaging in arguments that lead nowhere. You stop trying to control outcomes that were never yours to control. This chapter is not teaching you to become distant or detached from life. It's teaching you to become deliberate, to move from instinct to intention, to replace reflex with awareness. If you remember only one thing from this chapter, let it be this. The first advantage in any situation is information, and information comes to those who observe before they move. When you react first, you lose leverage. When you observe first, you gain choice. And choice is where strategy begins.